Happy Friday. Fridays are a good day, aren't they, Tyler?
Oh, they are. They're my favorite. Especially a Friday like this. Long weekend ahead.
Long weekend ahead. That is great. Happy Labor Day weekend, everyone. The unofficial end to summer. We have had an amazing summer here in Michigan, though. You have to admit, the weather's been great.
Oh, it has been. It's been fantastic. Mostly sunny. A few storms here and there. Not really any odd cold weather all throughout the summer. So it's been beautiful here in the state of Michigan.
I'm Ronnie Dull alongside Tyler Keefe, and this is the Oakland County Megacast, where Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, you can catch us on Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access. Listen to us on the radio, 89.3 Lakes FM and 88.1 FM, The Biff. Each and every day, we work to bring you area newsmakers talking about all things COVID-19 related, because nearly 6 months into this pandemic and things are still changing. And we have a great lineup for you here today as well. But first, we want to go ahead and get to the headlines quickly, because we want to bring in our first guest early on. But obviously yesterday, the big news coming out of the governor's office that everyone is talking about is the governor has approved opening of gyms and pools. It's a day business owners have been waiting for after months of being ordered closed due to the pandemic. Governor Whitmer has given the green light for gyms, pools, ice rinks, and bowling alleys to reopen. It's not going to be business as usual, though. The businesses must follow strict protocols, including limiting capacity. And keep in mind, too, bowling alleys and ice rinks are not going to be really open for the public. So if you're like a recreational bowler, you're not going to be able to go into the bowling alley and just pick up the ball and start playing. Those organizations and those businesses are only going to be open for organized sports. September 1st was a huge deadline for the bowling alleys because they have so many leagues that do start. They're losing businesses as people continue to go to Ohio and Indiana to bowl. So this is good news for these businesses. This has been a long-standing issue with so many of them.
Yeah, and a good day for them to be able to reopen, no matter what the capacity might be or whatever the regulations that may be in place for them. Gyms have been waiting for this since March and are going to be glad to have some of their patrons back legally. For those that have been illegally open, this just pretty much ends the loophole for them, and hopefully they'll actually follow the guidelines, unlike they did for the first 6 months of the pandemic. In terms of bowling alleys, league play is the majority of their income and is huge for them in this season, so that's a saving grace. Same with these pools. Only surprising thing, no indication of movie theaters in that discussion either.
Yeah, Tyler, we were talking about this before the show, and I'm really surprised about this, because if you are allowing these industries to reopen, that you are going to be closer in capacity. If I go to a movie theater, I'm sitting there typically near myself if I can. I don't like to sit next to other people, so I try to get there early, get the best seat. And then I don't like other people around me. So if they were to reopen movie theaters at a limited capacity, I'm not screaming, I'm not yelling, I'm maybe eating popcorn or drinking my drink, but even if you require mask, I'm really surprised. And I know the governor keeps saying that she's making her decisions based on the science and the data, and that's great. But I think at this point in time, one of the frustrations has been that data and that science is not being shared with the general public or these business owners.
And I would agree with that. I think that by and large, the governor has made the right decisions over the course of this pandemic. Of course, the nursing home decision, a huge question mark. And then the second greatest question mark in my mind is the data and the science, because if that is truly what is the highest motivating factor in all of these decisions, you would think that would be something you want to be very open and honest about.
Because we'd like to remind people, these are our elected leaders. They work for us.
Correct.
And that data is our data. That's our data, the taxpayers. So be open, be transparent, and share that data with all of us as well as the business owners, because I feel like if you do that, maybe, some people may still agree, some people may not agree, but I think it's in fairness that we all know what's behind your decision making. This is another big surprise coming out of yesterday is high school football resumes. High school sports are officially back. The Michigan High School Athletic Association received clearance from Governor Whitmer allowing sports to move forward. That includes football. Facial coverings are going to be required for all sports except for swimming and diving. That makes sense. Spectator limits of 2 per participant will be enforced for outdoor and indoor events. And keep in mind, for these high school football games, that's going to mean 100 people or less. With the reinstatement of the fall football season, teams can begin practicing September 8th. Then full in-pads practice starts September 10th, and the regular season begins September 18th. Surprised? I will say, again, I know this has been a huge issue, and there's been a lot of pressure put on the governor as well as other elected leaders in the state. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to try to get this reinstated. But contact sports, but no movie theaters.
To answer your question, no, I'm not surprised by this decision by the MHSAA. I question it for sure. I think that when you made the decision early to postpone the football season to spring, you made a tough decision, and you made it earlier to make the decision sooner rather than later. You want to make a decision that's too cautious and too early rather than not cautious enough, too late, and kids are sick or dead. In this case, I think that earlier on in the week, essentially blaming the governor's executive orders for why the football season was postponed in the first place, which was not according to the statement that was made when football was postponed, and then to resume the season now, and we still don't really know even the after effects of positive COVID-19 cases, even in asymptomatic situations on the kids. I question it. I understand why you want to continue the season, why the kids want to play, why the parents want their kids, some parents want their kids to play, why the MHSAA, definitely I understand why they want the games to go on, but I question the decision making in this situation.
The governor also yesterday extending the state of emergency, the declaration, that's going to be extended until October 1st. The previous order was set to expire today. Whitmer said in a statement that with the number of coronavirus cases growing, the virus remains a real threat to Michigan residents. In early August, every region in Michigan saw an uptick in new cases, which recently put Michigan past the 100,000 COVID-19 case mark. The state's percentage of positivity, though, remains below the national average. Michigan's 3.3% of all COVID-19 tests administered were positive. Nationally, that number is 6.1%. A little bit of good news coming out of that, though, when you're looking at the numbers, and that we are, and keep in mind, they're doing more and more tests now than ever before. So while we see these spikes, especially as college kids are going back to the campus, the relative number to the percentage to the total number of tests is still lower than the national average by quite a bit.
Yeah, Michigan continues to do really well in battling COVID-19, partially because the state has been so cautious in their decision-making regarding the virus, and the people of Michigan have done a great job, definitely as of late, of following the guidelines that have been in place.
So you'll find all those stories and so much more on civiccentertv.com. We want to go ahead, though, now, and if we can, jump to our first guest. I am so interested to hear from our next guest because, oh, my God, you want to talk about a resume. I was pulling up her resume, and I was like, I feel like such an underachiever. Such an amazing person to have right here in our own backyard. Dr. Ora Hirsch-Pescovitz, she's the president at Oakland University. You're not only the president of Oakland University, you're also a medical doctor. And, what is your take on all of this, just coming from being a medical doctor as well as a university president? You have information coming at you at all angles. What is your take on this?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm really delighted to be with you and with the audience here. Obviously, we're living in unprecedented times, and it is a challenge. We've been very fortunate in Michigan because after the big surge that we had in the spring, the population has really done a pretty good job of hunkering down. And I really credit our governor for her executive orders, and I credit our population for paying really close attention because compared to many other states, over the summer, we've had a reasonably good response. But I do think that we have to pay very close attention now in the fall because there is a very significant risk of a second surge, especially now with flu season coming upon us. And so I think all of us are really concerned. And as a physician, and I happen to be a pediatrician, I'm a pediatric endocrinologist, I have a lot of concerns about what might await us now.
Yeah, how has your medical background played into the decision making that you have made with Oakland University? Because students are back on campus, as of yesterday, classes resumed?
Yes, yesterday was our very first day, and I would say that it has been helpful for me to have a medical background. At the same time, it's given me a healthy dose of concern and some anxiety. So it has been a good thing, but it has probably left me with some sleepless nights.
Yeah, so we've seen across college campuses, they've seen a spike after the kids have come back to school because we are talking about college kids. And so many policies and procedures are put into place to try to manage the virus on campus, but you can't take that off campus and how they live and they act. How concerned are you going into the fall season, and is there a possibility that Oakland University may have to go remote at some point in time if cases do spike?
Right. So first of all, we obviously prepare for all scenarios, and we are at Oakland University prepared for every possible outcome. I do have to say that we think that we're obviously very optimistic for the coming semester. And Oakland University, in some ways, is very much like many other universities. And in other ways, I think that we're a little bit different than many other campuses around the country and even around the state of Michigan. So I like to compare and contrast to some of those other universities, especially the ones that are struggling right now. And we are prepared, though, for every single outcome. So I could give you some of those comparisons if you're interested.
Absolutely. That would be great.
Yeah. So Oakland is a campus that has just under 20,000 students, a little over 19,000 students. So, but not all of our students are residential students. So if you're comparing, for example, you heard probably very recently that the University of North Carolina brought all of their students to their campus, and then shortly after that, they ended up changing their decision and sending them home. MSU made a similar decision not to have face-to-face instruction. And those two universities, big, large residential campuses where the majority of their students normally live on campus. And in the case of both of those universities, students come from many different places, and in many of those cases from out of state, but they live on campus and they're considered college towns. Oakland is different. The majority of our students are actually commuter students, and less than 20% of our students in most years actually live on campus. So most of the time we have less than 3,500 students that live on our campus. So that already makes us somewhat different than those large residential campuses. Secondly, in contrast to campuses like that, we're not considered a college town. You know, those kinds of universities, the majority of the community where the universities are located, they're college towns. That's what the community is about. It's about the college And that's not really where Oakland resides. We're in both Rochester Hills and Auburn Hills, and we are integrated into our community. But the community is not just about Oakland University. We're a very important part of our community, but it's not just about Oakland University. And so we don't have a lot of bars and places where students congregate. And so that makes us pretty different. And I think that's another really big advantage for Oakland University in this pandemic. Another big difference is that most of our students, almost 100% of our students, are working students. And so they don't have a lot of time to party. And I think that is a really huge advantage for us as well. Now, at the same time, I told you I'm a pediatrician, and I know that college students are college students. And although we really all hope, all university presidents hope that students will comply with all of the regulations that we've put in front of them, and I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about what we have and expectations of our students, we know that college students will be college students. So we can't expect too much of them, but we do want them to know what is really required in order to keep them healthy and safe.
Dr. Ora Hirsch-Pescovitz with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the president of Oakland University, our Facebook partner on today's edition of the show. So with all that being considered, and there's a lot to be considered on the students' end and on families' ends as they're bringing their students back to campus and back to learning at Oakland this fall. Has enrollment been affected by COVID-19 or positively or negatively or not at all?
Yeah, we're really, really fortunate at Oakland. Our summer enrollment was very, very strong and was above last year's enrollment and frankly exceeded our expectations. And so far, our fall enrollment is also very, very strong. And I have to say, has surpassed our original expectations and is just a tiny bit short of where we were last year. And I have to tell you that we had originally been predicting a drop in enrollment because of the COVID crisis, but it's looking quite strong right now.
Dr. Pescovitz, you have such an amazing background. Knowing your medical background, how did that play into your decision making to resume classes and even a limited capacity on campus as well?
Well, I would say that it probably caused me to want to be very strict with our rigorous program about reopening. And so I would say that because I have a healthy respect for this virus, and because I follow the medical literature and the epidemiology about this global pandemic and what it's done to the world and what it has done to our country, and I am fearful about it, it has made me want to put the safety and the health of our community front and center, even more important than the education of our students, because I know that we can't educate our students and keep their education ahead of them if they aren't safe and healthy. And also, I have a responsibility for the health and safety of our faculty and of our staff. And so being a physician, I think has been an advantage, but it, as I said, has given me a very healthy respect for this virus that knows no boundaries. It doesn't care whether you're wealthy or poor. It doesn't care whether you're black or white. It doesn't care whether you are an international student or a domestic student. And so we have very rigorous protocols for all of our faculty, staff, and students. And I think it's because I am fearful of what a pandemic can do and what a surge in this virus could do to decimate our plans for the fall.
The program there on campus, Grizzlies Protect Grizzlies Healthy Together, you requested the students take an honor pledge and that they will wear their face-to-face coverings. They'll practice good hygiene and safe social distancing. Is there any type of repercussions for students who don't follow some of the rules that you and the administration has laid out to try to keep everyone safe there on campus?
Yes. First of all, let me just emphasize that program is not just for students. We expect faculty and staff to follow the exact same regulations that we expect from students. And it sounds like you've read that plan, and I'm delighted that you have, but it isn't just for students. Our approach basically is that we would much rather have carrots than sticks. And so our emphasis is on educational campaigns and on communication rather than on punitive measures. And so we have spent a lot of time communicating that program. And we have student ambassadors, and we're spending an enormous amount of time trying to reward people for following the plan. So we have lots and lots of, we have competitions for people who come up with the best masks and the best enforcement programs. But if people do not comply with the programs voluntarily, we have enforcement measures that range from simple reminders, which is our preference, all the way to if there are repetitive reminders that do not work, all the way to the possibility of suspension. And the reason for that, and again, it goes back, I guess, to your earlier question about my medical background. The reason for that is that in contrast to some other times where somebody might not comply with a rule that we might have on campus, is that if you don't comply with the regulations here, you're not just hurting yourself, but you run the risk of potentially creating a situation where a surge of the COVID infection could actually adversely impact our entire campus. And you could potentially put someone at risk for this virus who is much more vulnerable than you. And therefore, you could potentially expose someone who is immunosuppressed, or they might take it home to someone who is immunosuppressed, and someone else might die. And potentially, our entire campus would have to close down as a result of someone not complying with our rules and regulations. And so that's the reason why we have to have such very strict enforcement of our rules and policies. And so it isn't just a simple matter of one person not following these rules and regulations, or wearing a mask, washing their hands, social distancing. It's because it has these implications for our entire community, and we're part of a very large family. And this is a very unusual circumstance that we've never faced before.
That's certainly good to hear, and an approach to enforcement that I'm sure the student body will feel much more comfortable about than necessarily an emphasis on enforcement only. Earlier on this week, Dr. Hirsch-Pescovitz, we talked to the student body president, Ethan Bradley, who had expressed some concerns from the student body regarding enforcement of these guidelines, because there's so many people, the majority of the people that are students at Oakland University are people that are commuting to the university. For those that live on campus, or those students that may feel uncomfortable in a situation or feel like certain enforcement is not being done, how can they best express those concerns to the university, knowing that the university, of course, is taking that very seriously?
Yes, well, by the way, our student leaders have been exceptional. Students like Ethan, who have really taken a major lead in communicating to their fellow students, because I have to say that it's probably one thing for students to hear from administrators like myself about how important it is. But when students hear from other students how much they want their fellow students to comply with regulations like this because it matters to them, they do a much better job of communicating these messages. But if students hear that other students are not complying, they really do need to let, for example, in the residence halls for RAs to be informed, and then it will rise up progressively and we will take appropriate actions. And the same thing is true in the classroom to notify instructors, and we will take appropriate actions. You know, I know that many students, there's a lot of this out now in university press about whether students feel comfortable, for example, tattling on other students. And I certainly understand I told you I'm a pediatrician, I'm also a mother and a grandmother, and I understand how challenging that is for students to do that. And I'm not necessarily advocating for that. I don't know that students necessarily need to do that. The best thing for them to do is to tell one another, not to necessarily tattle to the administration. And if it's easier for them to just tell one another that they're uncomfortable, that they're putting one another at risk, I think that works a lot better than raising it to a higher level. So they have a choice in how they want to approach it. They can either tell someone at a higher level, or they can tell each other. But they certainly should not settle for a situation in which they feel uncomfortable.
Doctor, I know that you have a very tight schedule today. You're extremely busy, so we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to speak with us. But quickly before we go, any last thing we didn't ask that you do want the people of the public to know?
Well, I do want them to know that at Oakland, we're doing everything in our power to create the safest and healthiest environment we can. But we also recognize that there are some circumstances that may be out of our control. And one of the things that I am very proud of is that we've offered choice. So for students and faculty and staff that feel more comfortable staying at home, we've attempted to make that option available. So we have hybrid and programs that enable them to take remote learning. And the same is true for those that hope to be face-to-face. So we've tried to make our programs as flexible and as adaptable for all circumstances as much as is possible, given the complexities of these unprecedented circumstances that we're living in.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we all appreciate your leadership, even members of the community. Have a happy holiday weekend. We're kind of forgetting it's a holiday weekend here, Tyler. So, but a huge shout out. Oakland University, by the way, they are also our Facebook partner of the day. So we want to say thank you to them for allowing us to be able to share all the information here from the Oakland County Megacast with members of Oakland University. Great wisdom and insight from the university president as they work to, get underway. This is a hard time, but I will say, Tyler, I feel like Oakland University, the students, the staff, the community, we're so lucky to have someone like Dr. Hirsch-Pescovitz leading the university. Her medical background has to be such a huge asset into the insight and the decision making as they continue on this first semester back during this pandemic.
Yeah, it certainly is playing a great role in that, and we appreciate her time in explaining what the university is doing to help protect students this fall.
She has a busy schedule. I could probably have talked to her for easily another 30 minutes. So we appreciate her time, though. But I do invite everyone to go on to the Oakland University website, read her bio, talk about a person that has done amazing things in her life, feeling a little bit like an underachiever. But, hey, we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. And then when we come back, we will, we are going to be speaking with a local business owner about as he continues to navigate COVID-19.
Hi, My name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 help hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
This is the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dull alongside Tyler Keefe as we work Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, to bring you long, in-depth interviews with newsmakers throughout Oakland County and the state of Michigan. And Tyler, great interview with the Oakland University President. How lucky are they to have her leading the way over there? Because I would imagine her insight as a doctor has to play into a lot of the decision making that they are putting in place over there as they resume classes here this semester.
Yeah, and the good thing too is that there's ever any question on the medical efficacy of those decisions, that she can have an educated conversation about that and enlighten people to those decisions, why they're being made, why they're proper to be done in that manner from a medical perspective. And I think that's also something that can be really reassuring to the Oakland University community.
The other person I always like to get insight from is Chad Ever. He is the owner of Ever Studios. He's been a friend of the Oakland County Megacast. You are a business person who offers a lot of business insight. Thank you for being with us here again on the Oakland County Megacast.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Chad, for those not familiar with your business, fill them in with the services that you offer.
Yeah, so we're Ever Studios, my partner Krista and I, and our goal is to provide a creative approach to marketing for solopreneurs, small businesses, and we even work with some medium-sized businesses. So everything from your website design to your social media content, even going into retail setup and training staff on how to be more successful with their sales techniques. So working directly with small businesses, that's where our greatest impact is.
As so many new small businesses, especially gyms, are being able to reopen, what advice would you give them from your standpoint as a consultant?
I think the number one thing right now is you have to have exceptional experiences. You have to put your customers first. We're all adapting. You know, not everybody has been open this entire time. And so there's new, fresh protocols that have to be in place. And there are some businesses that have been open for a while and still haven't met that expectation. And so you want to make sure that you are listening and getting feedback from, you know, your customers and your clients of what they would like to see, and then adapt to cater to them, because their safety and them feeling heard and cared about, that's the most important thing.
Social media has been key during this pandemic, but I would imagine just as positive as social media can be, it can be devastating to a company as well if someone posts a negative comment. What advice do you have to owners in that regard?
Own the experience. You know, if I was to go on, you know, a search engine and search for a business, and I saw a business with a perfect 5-star rating, and I saw a business with a 4.7, I'm going to do a little research, and chances are I'll end up with that 4.7 because, yeah, they may have gotten some negative feedback, but they owned it and they responded to it and they took the high road and they made things right with that customer. So, you know, really listening and responding appropriately is going to be the best tool, even on negative impact items.
One of the things that we are seeing as the governor is allowing some of these businesses to reopen, there are so many restrictions put on them. And at the end of the day, they're still hiring employees that may not be following all these restrictions, or the restrictions change as well. What can business owners do to make sure that they're following all of the procedures and protocols that are being laid out for them? Because every business is different.
That's a practice that happens whether we're in a situation like we are now or if we're doing just business as usual. We have to get the buy-in of our teams. And in order to get the buy-in from your employees, you have to state what it is that you want done, right? But the majority of your conversation needs to be why it's important. And then there's a piece on there of what's in it for them. So you're going to tell somebody, I want you to take the trash out. And the reason that we're doing this is because it keeps our place clean and our customers appreciate it. And what's in it for you is more sales because you have a clean environment that your customers appreciate, right? So what it is, why it's important, and then what's in it for them. And if you can do that and get their buy-in, it's no longer an issue of whether they're doing it or not. They feel empowered and they feel like that they're supporting the business as a whole.
Chad Ever with us, owner of Ever Studios on the Oakland County Megacast, joining us today. So with that being the case, and gyms in particular reopening in the coming days, reopening next week, Tuesday, what steps should they be taking from a social media perspective now as they're approaching that opening day to keep their customers and any potential future customers informed about what they're doing in terms of how they're reopening and what they're doing in terms of protecting the community from COVID?
Yeah, definitely have their plan in place, have their protocols in place. Everybody understands what's happening. And then once that is all in place, then you're going to start creating content for social media that really lets the public know we are here for you and we want to be here for you, but there are some restrictions, and here's what we are doing to protect you, right? Come from a place of caring, come from a place of, we want to make sure you have the best experience possible. And in order to do that, we need you to work with us at following these guidelines. Make it clear and still have some fun with it. But at the end of the day, when I see a post, I want to make sure that it's something that resonates with me. And right now, safety is at the top of everybody's mindset.
Chad Ever, owner at Ever Studios. You're a small business owner, but you've also been helping other small businesses navigate the pandemic. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen businesses making during this time?
Putting a protocol in place and then not being dynamic with it, right? So this is the way it is, and they stick with their guns, even though that's not what us as consumers think would be the best or feel is the best way to do it. I'll give you one example without naming names, but there was a restaurant and they had one person running in back and forth, taking orders and bringing out the orders where everybody else is huddled outside. So if they were to take some feedback, I'm sure some people would have some input on a more streamlined way to do it that was a better experience for them. I personally have not gone back to that business because I sat there for 45 minutes waiting for a meal without any communication from that business. So if they offered an opportunity for me to give that feedback and then they adapted, they figured out a new protocol to put in place, a new system, I think that is going to be huge for businesses as we continue to navigate through all of this.
That is, those are some words of wisdom right there, because we went through one of the same things with a local restaurant, and you want to support these businesses, but at the end of the day, you try to have grace and understand that they may be taxed in different ways because it's hard for some businesses to be able to get employees right now. But at the end of the day, I'm still a customer, and there's something said about customer service and just being able to speak to people. With you being a small business, what have you had to do in your business to continue to survive, but also any tips that you could give to thrive during this as well?
So my business is it's an interesting business model. We've been since 2003. We've been a remote business, so we've been working with clients from all over the U.S. this entire time. So for us, this remote situation has that's the regular every day. So for us, we've been actually quite busy with businesses that are looking to figure out how to segue from a brick and mortar to an online presence, how to best cater to their customers and their clients, and even how to make sure that at the end of the day, their customers are cared for in a way that they've never had to experience this before. So again, I keep going back to adapting, being dynamic, not being set on your ways of what right looks like, taking feedback, observing other businesses. That's going to be huge. You have to have an open mind on what right looks like. And, that's kind of what we do. We come in, we have a conversation with you about your business, and we figure out how to streamline it, maximize your profits, decrease your costs, and really make sure everything is adapted for your customer first.
Chad Ever with us on the Oakland County Megacast. He is the owner of Ever Studios, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. In terms of advice for virtual sides of these companies going forward after the pandemic, what are you advising these companies to do as they eventually will transition back to their normal, quote-unquote, operations, what with the lessons that they've learned from you and from the rest of society throughout this pandemic?
I'm getting a lot of feedback from a lot of businesses that they're finding that actually having remote workforces is working great for them. It was something they had a little bit of growing pains in the beginning, but they're finding that they can actually downsize their brick and mortar presence and still maintain productivity. So setting, solid expectations with your team, having their buy-in, super, super important. And as we continue to navigate back into in-person, setup for businesses, still keep in mind that you need to have, I guess we could call it a backup, right? A contingency plan in place in the event of other things. A lot of us were not prepared for this. I was fortunately already in place to handle it, but there were a lot of businesses, I would say most businesses, that were not prepared to handle a mandatory remote hands-off business model. And a lot of businesses, I know a few that have had to close, it just wasn't working for them. They weren't able to do it, and they've had to segue to different industries. So having that dynamic, business model where you can flex and move is going to be super important in the future.
And let me ask you something, because there are so many different social media platforms out there. Is it better to post pictures or is it better to post video? And if someone is not socially media savvy, is there a way for them to come up to speed? Like, are there certain YouTube videos that they could watch? Or there are so many apps right now. Is it worth paying for some of these apps that you can make these cute, quick, little videos for your business?
Awesome question. So in general, I'm going to give you a real general. So with Facebook, you're going to be looking at a general demographic of 35 plus. Instagram is going to be 35 less and under. And they tell two different stories, right? Facebook is designed for people to connect with people that they that are family, that they're coworkers. It's more of a community driven. Instagram is storytelling visually. So based on the people you're trying to get as customers or clients, that's where you need to focus your attention. So if you are somebody who works at a high-end car dealership, photos are going to be huge, right? Connecting with your existing contacts, that may not be quite as solid. You might not get as much out of it. However, if you are, working at a nursing home, working with the people who are taking care of or paying for these folks that need a place, Facebook is going to be the way to do it. And that's where you can really generate some good resonating content for them. So it's all about who you're targeting, both demographically, but also as a person, right? What do they do and where are they? And then that's where you want to focus your attention. Now, as far as paying for apps that are going to take care of stuff for you, content creation can be easier than it seems. Once you get a content calendar in place, you know when you're going to post, you have an idea, you can plan those out for a month at a time and have them scheduled. And natively, Facebook and Instagram allow you to, schedule posts. So that can, free up time. You can dedicate an hour a week and have your entire week's worth of stuff put out. So there are streamlined ways to do it, and we can help a business navigate and put a system in place to make sure that you're efficient while doing those.
So it's so important to know your brand, identify your brand, go after your brand. But I think some people feel like, okay, if I use Hootsuite to schedule these, the same thing I post on Facebook is okay for Instagram, is okay for Twitter or TikTok, and there are so many new ones I can't even keep up with them.
Right.
But that's not the case. Know which platform is best for your audience and then gear it towards that.
Absolutely. And the other thing to consider, Facebook actually penalizes us for not posting natively. So if you are using a third party, you're not going to get quite as many views or engagements if it's posted by a third party, distributor as well. So doing the content calendar and scheduling it natively with Facebook, meaning posting directly from them, not using a third party, is going to get you better reach. Now, if you're a business that has, hundreds of thousands of reach, a couple dropping off is not going to be, so bad in comparison to streamlining your life. But if you're working with 100, 200 followers, dropping those 5 to 10 is kind of a big deal. That's a big number. So it all depends on your brand as well.
Chad Ever with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Chad, just another few minutes with you before we let you go.
Sure.
Anything else that you'd like to discuss today or that you feel would be important for local businesses and potential clients or other people to know as they continue to navigate through this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it for a little while. Now is really a good time to focus on restructuring the core of your business, understanding your processes. I think the last time we met, that was one of my key points. And we are finding ourselves, I'm not going to say getting back to normal, but we are getting back to a place where businesses are starting to grow a little bit more. And if we get to a place 2 months from now where we are doing business really well, are you going to have the time to focus and redo your website that you've been thinking about doing? Start putting together advertising campaigns, having your staff trained up for sales that are going to be closing better, right? Getting better sales efforts in place. So it's still a great time to start investing. We do have the holiday season coming up, and it's going to look different this year than it has any other year. So, if anybody wanted to, sit down and put a plan together in place, we would love to chat with them. Like I said, my partner, Krista, and I, we work with a lot of small businesses, individual folks, solopreneurs, if you will. And we do work with some medium-sized businesses as well. Our goal is to work with the people who actually are vested with the company. So if you, if a business owner has multiple locations, we'll definitely work with them. We're just not going to be working with the board because we want the people who genuinely care and are invested in the company to really have the strongest impact.
Chad, before we let you go, I have a question for you. You are a small business owner, so you know the struggles and what it takes to get a business open. So many people during the pandemic who maybe lost their job trying to figure out the next move in their life, and they possibly thought about prior to the pandemic of always wanting to own their own business. What would you advise them to do? Is this a good time for them to try to step out and face their fear and just make it happen? Or is this not a good time to start a new business?
Depends on the business. I think any time is a great time to take that next step towards freedom, towards doing what you truly love. I've worked with several people during this pandemic who took their hobbies and started making some income off of it. And when it comes to initial investment, it can be very minimal. You can start off for very few dollars and really get your toes wet. It's important to have that true structure in place and understanding your processes, because you want to make your business scalable. You want it to where you can grow exponentially without having to put an equal amount of effort or work into it. And, that's what we specialize in, is helping businesses already in place or helping folks get started with that. So I think it's a great time to actually take that first step.
Sometimes, when life sets you back, maybe it's also a good chance for you to, go with that opportunity, or, live out that dream. Face your fear, live out the dream. What do you have to lose at this point in time? Hey, Chad, it's always great having you on the Oakland County Megacast. You're so full of information and knowledge and advice. Anything quickly that we didn't ask that you think people need to know?
No, we covered a lot today, and even in our last couple we've covered. So I would just say, go back through the archives, check out the other stuff that you folks have been doing, because you're on here all the time, and great people have been able to share some great wisdom and what they're doing with their businesses. So, thanks for listening to me, but you guys have some great stuff in the archives as well. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, we are so lucky to have this platform to try to bring people of the community together, because I think it's by coming together that we are all going to come out of this crisis stronger. So thank you to you and your team, and always being willing to be a guest here on the Oakland County Megacast. We wish you all the best. Stay safe and stay healthy, and have a good holiday weekend. Summer's over already. Can you believe that?
I know. It caught up really quickly. Thanks, Ronnie. Thanks, Tyler.
Hey, by the way, I don't see the foosball table behind you.
No, working from home today.
Oh, okay. Well, when you're back open and this is over, Tyler wants to challenge you.
Sure.
You got it. We'll give it a go.
Wonderful.
Have a happy weekend. Chad Everett, the owner of Ever Studios, here with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Always a great guest, and sharing so many insights, especially for the small businesses during this pandemic, because these are tough times and rough times for so many people. But I think by speaking with one another and listening to the advice, and knowing there are people that you can reach out to help navigate this, because if any time we've needed to come together, this is the time right here. So thank you to Chad Ever and the owner over there at Ever Studios. So Tyler, should we take a quick break?
Yeah,
we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and a lot to get to in the second hour of the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe, and you are listening and watching us on CivicCenterTV.com.
I am Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Welcome back to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keefe. Sometimes we work to try to get some last-minute guests here as the news of the day changes. And definitely the biggest news that everyone seems to be following right now, the new information that came out of the governor's press conference yesterday, one of those being that high school sports officially going to resume here in the fall. The Michigan High School Athletic Association received the clearance from the governor allowing for sports to move forward. That includes football. So to talk a little bit more about that, we want to bring in John Johnson. He's the director of broadcast properties with the MHSAA.
There you go.
I got to get it straight. Hey, John, how are you?
I'm doing fine. Good to be with you.
We always appreciate having everyone from your organization here on the Oakland County Megacast. You guys have had no breaks during all of this. Are you relieved to some degree? What are your feelings right now?
Our schools are excited about the opportunity to get back on the field. I think that's the bottom line. The kids are excited. The coaches are excited. It's not going to look like your grandfather's Friday night football games, not for a while. But I think that some of the things that our schools have done throughout the summer to show that they can follow the practices and the protocols, I think part of that has paid off. And I think some of the circumstances around us with 25 other states successfully now conducting competition. I think there's just a variety of things that have gone and pointed us in the direction where we got the new executive order that we had been seeking from the governor's office, and that will allow us to start playing varsity football games 2 weeks from tonight.
John Johnson with us, Director of Broadcast Properties at the MHSAA on the Oakland County Megacast. John, it's a big change of heart from the MHSAA from the decision in August to postpone the games, partially due to the executive order, but also for safety reasons of the students, to now resuming games in just 2 weeks, as school has only just begun. From a medical standpoint, I know there's been plenty of consultation between the MHSAA and the medical community, and you've done your due diligence. How did those conversations also play in to the decision for contact sports like football to be resumed?
Well, let's get the one thing straight first. Our board's decision was completely based on Executive Order 160.
Okay.
That was telling us you can't play football. That's the governor's office, I'll say it again, telling us you can't play football. We didn't have a choice. We didn't want to break the law. Schools did not want to break the law. So you can only play the cards that you've been dealt. And those were the only cards that we had dealt to us as of a few weeks ago. Now, since then, we continue to ask for interpretations from the governor's office. We saw the world changing around us. We saw what our schools could do in the event that they identified or suspected a COVID case. We've been playing football games now around the country. One last statistic that I saw is that a number of states have gone through 15 states, have played over 95% of their games, and have done so without a single COVID contraction. So if you want to say, hey, we're treading it, we're dipping our toes into the new normal, well, I guess this is the new normal. And then finally, you started to have the entrepreneurs come out of the woodwork. This is the thing that we were afraid of. It happened all summer in baseball. How that was allowed to go on was criminal, and not be bound by the same standards that our schools were bound to during the summer, during their workouts. But offering AAU style football, 7-on-7 style football. And we went back to the governor's office and says, you can't let this happen. And if you're going to let this happen, then we want to be in the game because we can do it better. Our schools can do it safer than anybody else. So a lot of things changed. And again, I think our schools are up to the task of dealing with this.
So, John, I know it's not going to be football as usual or sports as usual. Can you talk about some of those protocols that are going to be in place?
The big one that people will obviously notice downstate here, because we are still in phase 4 of the MI Safe Start plan, will be attendance. And 2 guests will be allowed per participant into the game. That'll be your coaching staff and all your players and all your cheerleaders. So if you put all those numbers together, maybe you might get 50 to 60. School like West Bloomfield, for example, it might be 80 or 90. So let's say you're having a West Bloomfield Clarkston game. Okay, that's about 360 people maybe that can attend the game, 180 for each side. And of course, schools will have to get those people masked up. They will have to get them. Socially distanced up in the stands. So there's a lot of things that are going to have to happen like that. The sidelines on a football game. Usually the coach's bench area runs from the 20 to the 20. Well, it's going to be from the 10 to the 10 now, so that players can be spaced out appropriately when they're not in the game. So those are the things that you'll see in football. Obviously you'll see similar things happen in soccer and volleyball. In fact, the first guidance now from the new executive order says all participants have to be masked up. Facial coverings is the exact term that was used, except if swimming. And right now we're seeking an interpretation of that because cross country and golf and tennis have been playing now for 3 weeks in competition with no problems without masks. So we need some additional interpretation of already of the new executive order to allow for what's already gone just fine. You know, so like I say, I hate the term the new normal, but this is the new normal.
Yeah, and if we want to participate in sports and enjoy high school sports, these are the things we're going to have to do. Can I get clarification, though? Isn't the mandate still in place, though, that we can only have gatherings of 100 people or less outdoors?
It's different according to this executive order for organized athletics. Executive Order 176 is specific to that, as opposed to weddings, as opposed to church, as opposed to other things. And some early drafts, for example, was using that 100 cap total, and not two guests per participant. But finally, then that was changed yesterday during the development process of the executive order to 2 per participant. And so, yeah, sports is being handled differently than some other aspects of our lives.
John Johnson with us. He is the Director of Broadcast Properties at the MHSAA, joining us this morning on the Oakland County Megacast on a variety of stations, including 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, West Bloomfield, Keagle Harbor, Sylvan Lake, and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. So, John, football season, it's going to begin with the Week 4 schedule. 6-game regular season. Every team makes the playoffs. I looked at West Bloomfield's schedule yesterday, beginning at Week 4, and in this case they would have 2 away games and then about 4 home games, not including the potential change of a home game to an away game at the end of the season in their Catholic League matchup. Is that going to play? Are those decisions going to be changed in terms of scheduling to even out home and away games for certain teams, or are they going to stay as they are and be a decision made between the schools?
Regular season schedules, like you say, between the schools. 95% of the stuff that happens in high school sports are local decisions, not anything that comes out of the MHSAA office. We've already had questions about what happens now within our conference. Can we rejigger the schedule if we so desire? And the answer to that is yes. We just came out of a staff meeting where we were talking about, well, what about some non-conference games? You know, there's still some fine tuning that will have to go on a lot of this. But for the most part, stay tuned to your local schools. Find out exactly how they want to proceed with this. We will get those schedules up on our website as quickly as we can, because we're going to need that information to help determine playoff point averages, which for the playoffs would still be used to help determine home teams.
John, I do have a question. First, can I say, you guys, I know you've been doing incredible work behind the scenes to try to navigate all of this. So thank you to you and your team and everyone up there at the MHSAA working to try to come up with some clarification on how this is all going to play out. What happens if a school has an outbreak of COVID amongst some of the team members?
Well, that again, that's a local issue. That's between the school and its health department. Now, how that plays in, and if a school has to, withdraw from play during a regular season game, we'll have some things in place that will deal with win forfeits and loss forfeits according to our playoff formulas. But if it were to happen in a tournament situation, then that would just simply create a bye in the bracket, and that's typical. That's typical policy for us. We had to remind schools of that a year ago, late in the fall, when we had the mosquito-borne viruses that were being transmitted and altering schedules for football teams. Hey, if you can't play a tournament game, because your health department says shut it down, then you vacate your spot in the tournament.
John Johnson with us from the MHSAA. He is the Director of Broadcast Properties. John, just another couple of minutes with you here on the show today. Anything else that you believe is important for our audience to know about the decision yesterday by the MHSAA to execute the fall sports seasons and reinstate the football season, albeit on a shortened basis?
Well, I think the fact that, our schools are ready to get out there. They're ready to prove that they can take care of this. They're ready to address what could be a bigger situation. And that's not COVID, that's the mental health of kids. And at a time when kids need something normal in their lives, high school sports has this opportunity to provide that, getting these kids together, whether they've been in the classroom all day or being taught virtually. That's going to give them a chance to be with their neighbors, to be with their friends, and to get some normalcy back in their lives. And folks, I got to cut it off here because, as you can imagine, the interviews on the schedule are pretty stacked up today.
Oh, yeah.
We appreciate you fitting us in to your schedule this morning. John Johnson with us from the Michigan High School Athletic Association, filling us in on the decision-making yesterday behind the executive order from Governor Whitmer to allow the continuation of high school sports. More importantly, I think the one that everyone is focusing on is high school football resuming as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast, and when we come back, the Etiquette Guru. Always an interesting conversation. You're listening to and watching the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus. Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/contain-COVID. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
This is the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith. We may be keeping a social distance from other people and not getting out as much as we used to. However, that doesn't mean etiquette needs to go out the window. Don't forget all those rules that your parents taught you when you were young. Although the world is changing, and to help us navigate it, Stacy Amey, she's the Etiquette Guru, joining us on the Oakland County Megacast. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
It's so just like the rest of the world, etiquette has to be changing as well. What are you telling people? What's the advice that you're giving people now? Because sometimes I feel like I'm being rude when I don't shake their hand, and it's hard to acknowledge and get over those habits that we were taught as young kids.
Just communication, looking people in the eye, tell them your expectations, ask them what theirs are. So keeping the lines of communication open, that's going to be key. And also staying patient with people. We don't know what anybody has been through or what they're going through. So kindness always.
I feel like I need a mask that says I'm smiling under here.
You don't have to. Your eyes tell the story when you smile, and people can see that smile in your eyes. They can hear it in your voice.
Stacy Amey with us. She is the Etiquette Guru, joining us today on the Oakland County Megacast. What advice, Stacy, are you providing to parents, or giving to parents and students as they're returning to learn, some in person, some virtually, and some both, where there's certainly going to be differences from day to day, situation to situation?
Well, first, I think it's important for everyone to realize that this is going to end. There's been pandemics in the past. We're going to get this slowed down, and it will end. Things will go back to normal eventually. For parents specifically, in addition to all the other school guidelines, everyone will need to wear their masks, follow the distancing guidelines, and wash their hands frequently, and use hand sanitizer, washing your hands preferably, number one. And top on our Supermurray good manners list of skills, if you'd like, I can explain more on that later, is keeping your germs to yourself. So that entails wearing the masks. And secondly, the washing of the hands. Anytime you go to touch your face, your eyes, nose, mouth, you want to have your hands clean. And going back to basics, getting into the habit of washing our hands before we eat and after we eat, and before and after using the bathroom, even at home, every single time, no matter where we are, we want to do that. But this virus is spread by spraying and coughing droplets out into the air. And so stopping the spread into your arm, stopping the spray into your arm will slow down the spread of the virus, but is it the best idea? I say no, because viruses like COVID-19 live on your clothes and for hours. So again, preferably if you can cough and sneeze into your hand or tissue and then wash your hands. So in school, in person, this is going to be very, very important, and a multifaceted approach. If schools are open for in-person classes, there are some definite, again, Supermurray manners that we will want to consider. First of all, having these rules and following these rules without complaining, that's going to be key. It's going to be very challenging, I imagine, for teachers. I think some kids will be uncomfortable. They're going to be defiant. Again, keeping communication lines open. So in order to keep people safe in person, talking to kids, telling them what to anticipate and how to do things. For younger children, this is going to be difficult. So following up with them, maybe role playing at home, that will be a good idea so that they really understand what they are supposed to do. And parents need to model positive behavior so that this will be a better experience for the in-person learning. And also, when we use our Supermurray manners, that's a definite sign of respect. So conversely, if children are learning remotely at home, that comes with a different set of expectations. On the plus side, nobody's going to have to deal with the masks, but children still need to realize they need to be quiet, not interrupt, raise their hands and wait their turn, just as if they actually were in school. And teachers want to be teaching their children in person. This is incredibly stressful for everybody. So I really feel for the parents that are having to do this new and unique remote learning. It must be completely stressful to motivate their kids to sit there and learn their lessons.
Extremely hard. I love your line, keep your germs to yourself. I see that on masks, shirts, That could be our new business with the Etiquette Guru. Hey, you mentioned Super Murray a couple times. I'm holding up the comic book. We have a copy of it here. Can you explain how you came up with the comic book? It's great for kids.
The comic book idea was born actually with each issue. It's a 12-issue kids comic book magazine, and it's for kids of all ages. Actually, anybody. It's really fun, but specifically for kids 8 to 11. It started because my husband's family grew up with a pet raccoon, and his antics were so funny and silly. He was an especially bad-mannered little critter. So I always knew I wanted to write a book on all of those stories. And then the Murray Mag just, I don't know, it came sort of out of nowhere, but has been evolving and it's revealing itself to me. It's got so many great, fun, and interesting topics for really boys and girls. There's everything. There's puzzles and games, gardening, kids' health and fitness, poetry, new, unique sports for everyone to try. There is a page dedicated to the Etiquette Granny where she discusses an important aspect of life etiquette in each issue. And then in the centerfold, there's a comic, and it's called Super Murray versus the World. And the comic itself, each issue tackles a different problem or topic for really that affects probably almost every kid growing up. But you come to learn that Super Murray is what is unique and special inside each and every one of us that we draw upon for strength and courage and good choices. And so it's become my dream to help children develop all the positive life habits and behaviors shown through this magazine, and to have each child find and cultivate their own personal Super Murray within themselves.
It's a great way to connect with kids, to let them understand on their level why this matters, and to teach them in a different way. If parents are interested, how can they get a copy of the comic book?
Contact me at mymurraymag@yahoo.com.
How long have you been working on this?
It's been burbling below the surface for a few years as far as the My Friend Murray children's chapter book goes, but I actively started working on this last July, so just over a year, and I'm working on my 4th issue, and I have a very talented illustrator, Boris Kim. He's doing all the illustrations, and he's done everything in the book. He's fabulous, so he really brings everything in my brain to life, and it's been an amazing experience for that and so much fun.
Stacy Amey with us on the Oakland County Megacast. She is the Etiquette Guru. You are also a registered nurse. How does that knowledge and your background play into your other role as the Etiquette Guru during a pandemic?
I think the knowledge of knowing how the spread happens and teaching kids, really, I've been trying to teach them for 12 years now about not using their elbow to cough and sneeze into and how poor that looks. And it's so important now to try to contain that in our hands and wash our hands. Soap and water, and the masks are so important. Whether you agree with wearing the masks or not, that's all we really have right now to contain this virus until we get it knocked down a little bit.
What do you want parents to know about why etiquette still matters? Why do their kids still need to learn all of these, some people would say maybe even old school rules and regulations around etiquette?
I want parents to just look around and see what's happening in our country and in our world. Things are very out of control, and at its very basic source, nobody is considerate, nobody is respectful, and we need to reinstate these basic skills in people, and just kindness. It's basic kindness, respect, showing that towards other human beings. I feel like people are losing that somewhere, that what's happening is there's people are dying because of other people's poor choices and actions, and it's just unacceptable.
So As someone who is in your position and you are the etiquette guru, what's it been like for you with the younger generation where social media and their phones are such a huge part of their life? I feel like a lot of the younger kids don't understand what it's like to actually speak to people one-on-one and look them in the eye. Has it been a challenge to teach some of the younger kids?
When we're actually in a teaching situation, it's not a challenge because they understand if their parents have put them in a class, they somewhat understand why they're there and a little bit about what it's all about. Yes, they are different, but they can be brought back around easily. And a lot of kids don't want to be bad necessarily. They don't want to be disrespectful. They just need to be shown what to do. And they are so cute when they get empowered with the information, and that you can just see the major difference from class 1 to class 6, how empowered they are and how they want to behave in a certain way. It's a choice. It's an individual choice to act poised or not. And I think when they understand that it's their choice and nobody's making them do it, that it impacts their lives, whether they act a certain way or not, when they take ownership of it, they're motivated. They want to learn. And like I said, I don't think they even realize maybe how they're just kind of isolating themselves with the whole social media environment.
Stacy, great job on the magazine. Super Murray is a great way, I think, to get this message out to kids. It's really geared towards kids that are 8 to 11 years old. Thank you again, though, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us here on the Megacast.
Thank you.
Anyone that needs information on the comic book, email mymurraymeg@yahoo.com. And our appreciation to Stacy Amey, the etiquette guru. And for the parents out there, if you do want to get your kids into a class, never too young to learn good manners, the etiquette guru at yahoo.com. We are going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, my name is Kurt Lawson, and I'm the Public Information Officer for West Bloomfield Township. We wanted to reach out to you, our older adults, to provide information that you may find useful during this difficult time. We want to ensure you that West Bloomfield Town Hall, our Waters and Utility Department, West Bloomfield Parks, and our police and fire departments continue to work hard on your behalf. Information and resources can be found on the Township website, the police Facebook and Twitter, or call West Bloomfield Park's COVID-19 help hotline. Please remember to keep your social distance of at least 6 feet, wear facial coverings when you leave your home, and wash your hands for at least 20 seconds with soap. These precautions will help keep you safe during these difficult times.
This may seem uncomfortable, but so is being hooked to an IV, sleeping in a hospital bed, and fighting for your life. When it comes to COVID-19, comfort is not as important as saving lives. Wearing a mask can greatly reduce the chance of spreading the virus. So mask up, Michigan, every time you leave home.
We have so many amazing things in our own backyard, but I feel like we forget to explore the history that is right here in Metro Detroit. And some of that history does include one of the only 5 Negro League ballparks still in existence, and there is one right here in Metro Detroit in Hamtramck. Let's bring in Mike Wilson. He's the president of Friends of the Historic Hamtramck Stadium. Mike, thank you for being with us this morning.
Hey, thank you for having me.
I will say, before I saw your name on the guest list, I didn't even know this was still in existence here. So for our viewers and listeners who aren't familiar with the stadium in the ballpark, can you tell us a little bit about it and the history?
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden jewel I'm a local baseball coach too, and I've been active in baseball quite a while in this area. But many times when I mention the stadium, people were kind of lost in the sense that they never knew that there was a Negro Leagues Stadium located in the city of Hamtramck. So the stadium was built in 1930, and it was primarily built for Negro League Baseball. And the fact that at that particular time, Negro League players couldn't play in the major leagues, you had a lot of locals from the Detroit area and the Hamtramck community that would come down and support the games. That was their form of entertainment back in the 1930s and in the early 40s.
Mike Wilkson with us. He's the president of the Friends of the Historic Hamtramck Stadium with us on the Oakland County Megacast. So are games still being played in the stadium, or is it now more of a museum space and a historic space providing the great history of Negro League Baseball in the Detroit area?
Well, currently the Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium, which is a nonprofit organization, came up with the idea because of our historian, Gary Gillette, who was part of the Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium, found out about the significance of it and the relevance of it back in the early 1900s. But in any event, the organization was formed to be able to restore the stadium, because at that time, well, back in the last 9 or 10 years, Hamtramck was considering the possibility of tearing the structure down, because it hadn't been used since maybe the late 80s. I think in the 80s it was used primarily for maybe some of the high school teams in the area used it, St. Florian, St. Ladislaw, Hamtramck High, and it was also being used for American Legion games and Pony League games. But since the late 1980s, the field was just laying there dormant, collecting weeds. So Hamtramck had considered tearing it down, but the Friends of Hamtramck Stadium came along and came up with the idea of trying to raise money to restore the stadium back to its prominence.
So I would imagine that is requiring a fundraising effort. Where does the organization stand in that regard?
Yes, we instituted a patronicity fundraiser campaign last year in 2019. Now I'm going back another 100 years. But in 2019, and which was primarily designed to be able to redevelop the field itself, the playing surface, and the other part of that, which is phase 2, was to be able to fundraise to possibly restore the grandstands, the original grandstands. So we've had 3 or 4 different organizations that have kind of pulled up to the pump, so to speak, and helped us as far as donating significant funds toward restoring the grandstand. So the field playing surface is just about done. We were originally going to start, our plan was to start in late March, early April, but due to the pandemic, unfortunately, because of the governor's mandate, we couldn't start then. Our contractors weren't able to start until early July. So the field surface itself, the field was, we had it laser graded. We had it, we brought in a clay sand mix, which is called Dura Edge, which is one of the top clay sand mixes now for sandlot fields. Actually, 28 fields in the major leagues are comprised, the infields are comprised of Dura Edge clay sand mix. And then also we had sod donated for the infield and the foul territories areas by Hillcrest Farms, sod. So the field itself is just about done, but the grandstands will, because of the significant donations that we've gathered, which is going to take close to $2.5 million to restore the grandstands. That project redevelopment project will it could possibly start in the fall, but it looks like it may not start until early spring. So our plan is to start programming and to get people on the field at the latest next late May or next June of 2021.
Mike, from a historic perspective, the Detroit Stars did play baseball in the historic Hamtramck Stadium. What other famous Negro League players or other teams were featured in the stadium and its great history in the local area?
Another team that played there was the Detroit Wolves. The field was developed initially for the Detroit Stars because actually the Detroit Stars played at Mack Park, which was over on Mack and Fairfield in Detroit. And what happened was, and Mack Park was built in 1914, but back in 1929, while the Detroit Stars were playing there, the Kansas City Monarchs were in town for a doubleheader, and they had several days of significant rains that took place. And then because of the fact that on July 7th of 1929, they didn't want the doubleheader to be rained out. So the owner at that time, which was Joe Rosnick, Joe had the grounds crew actually pour gasoline on the infield to be able to make sure the field was dry for play. And afterwards, some of the grounds crew members ended up storing the gasoline up under the grandstands. And unfortunately, somebody came by with a lit cigarette, and the lit cigarette butt ignited. And what happened consequently was the storage area and the grandstands actually were engulfed in flames, and the wooden bleachers were destroyed. So the Detroit Stars finished playing that year, but without grandstands. And then Joe Rosnick decided to build a brand new stadium in Hamtramck. So the Detroit Stars played there in 1930 up until 32. And then because of the Great Depression coming into existence, they fell on hard times. They actually ended up closing down the Negro National Leagues at that time, and the East-West League National Negro Leagues came into play, and the Detroit Wolves started playing there in 1932. Well, they kind of fell on hard times. So in 1930, after 1932 season, 1933, the American Negro Leagues came into existence, and the Detroit Stars came back and finished up playing at the Historic Hamtramck Stadium throughout, I think 1937 was when the Detroit Stars stopped playing at Hamtramck Stadium.
So much history in our own backyards. I'd like to get your feelings and your take on what we are seeing with athletes around the country, including here in Michigan, and their stance against racial injustice. Here we are, how many years later, and this is such a big conversation still.
Yeah, it's it's a shame that a lot of individuals that play today do not know about the Negro Leagues and what those individuals went through attempting to fulfill the dream of playing Major League Baseball. I mean, the fact that there was a gentleman's agreement that was made back in the early 1900s because of the fact that racism was rampant back then, and the owners' general agreement made sure or kept Negroes from playing at that particular time. They were ostracized totally. And so due to the fact that, because of ignorance, a lot of individuals didn't realize that these individuals had gifts and talents that they would be able to compete against anybody at that particular time. As a matter of fact, during that time, when the Negro League players would play Major League players in all-star games, 60% of those games were won by Negro League players, all-star players, believe it or not. But in this day and age, like I said, I've been coaching for many, many years. Many players want to be able to play against the best. And these individuals that I encounter, I mean, when you're playing a team sport and everybody's pulling in the same direction for a common goal, there is no color. There's just team. And most individuals that I come into contact with in travel baseball, on high school baseball, even collegiate baseball and training athletes, they want to play against the best and they want to be the best that they can possibly be. So in team sports, typically, there is no color line or no color barrier, in my opinion.
To the ball players or to just fans in general, what do you tell them about the history of this team and how it's shaped the game today? Well,
we at Historic Hamtramck Stadium, we have a goal and a plan to be able to teach Negro League history, teach, we're also at the stadium going to have all kind of interpretive exhibits. We're going to be putting together Negro League curriculum to take into the schools. There'll be kiosks also there, educational kiosks there on the grounds. So, we plan to be able to teach the history, and so individuals can learn about the significance of what the Negro League players brought to the party as far as the history of baseball. I mean, I've seen recently where Major League Baseball, number one, has listed on MajorLeagueBaseball.com that Hamtramck Stadium is one of the 17 most significant areas to visit regarding Negro League history, as well as they're visiting the possibility of Negro League players being able to, their stats being able to also be in Major League Baseball record books to go alongside the current Major League Baseball and the prior Major League Baseball players. But 17 individuals that played at Hamtramck Stadium over the years are currently in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. Those are all Negro League players. They're in the Hall of Fame now.
That's incredible to me. Mike Wilson, President, Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium. Has it been hard for you and the organization to try to get the money that you need to continue this project during the pandemic because so many people are financially conscious right now?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of individuals that when they hear of and find out the significance and the history behind this stadium, a lot of people are coming on board in terms of extending their support and making donations. I mean, of course, we always need more donations. We're looking to add more things. We want the stadium to be, we want it to be first class, and we want it to be high tech. So we want to have electronic high tech scoreboards, and we want to have custom dugouts and all those things that make it on par with the current stadiums around the country. So we're looking for donations. I mean, individuals can go to our website if they're interested in donating, which is www.hamtramckstadium.org, as well as volunteers. We're always looking for more help and support in that regard.
So when you need volunteers, what kind of volunteers? What do you need them to have skills in?
To help out with our clinics, we put on, every spring and fall, we put on free sports clinics for youth in the community. So softball, baseball, soccer for boys and girls. We'll need volunteers to come out and help us administratively, or if they have gifts or talents or skill sets in those particular sports. We're looking for volunteers in that regard to help out.
Mike Wilson with us, President, Friends of Historic Hamtramck Stadium. If I drive by the site right now, what does it look like?
Well, if you drive by currently, you'll see our grounds crew, the Hamtramck Stadium grounds crew, which is a volunteer group. They used to be the volunteer group they were called the Navens Field grounds crew. They were at the old Tiger Stadium. And then that old Tiger Stadium was bought up by PAL, and they put turf down. But currently, they are our grounds crew there at Hamtramck Stadium, and they're there irrigating the field every day, without question, 7 days a week. And you'll see that field it looks like you're at Comerica Park. If you drive out there now, you'll see that field looks exactly like Comerica Park. You'll probably want to go out there and take some batting practice or field some ground balls.
I'm not that talented, trust me, but I love having the time to speak with you this morning. I love your passion, and thank you for keeping this topic alive and sharing the story of the Detroit Stars and the Hamtramck Stadium for everyone out there. If you want to get involved, hamtramckstadium.org. Mike Wilson with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Hopefully you'll see a bump in some interest following this interview, because you guys are doing amazing work. Thank you so much for your passion and your time and all that you're doing for the community.
Well, thank you so much for having me and for what you do. And may all your listeners have a blessed day and weekend.
hamtramckstadium.org. Check out their website. It's an incredible story. And we're happy to share it here on the Oakland County Megacast. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we are switching to politics. So hold on. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, Talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Okay, we are going to end the week and end the show talking politics. I don't know if this is a good decision or not, but let's bring in our political expert, David Dulio. He is a professor of political science and the director of the Center for Civic Engagement at Oakland University. Oakland University, also our Facebook partner of the day. It is always a pleasure having you on the show. Happy Friday to you, Professor. How are you?
I'm great. Happy Friday to you guys.
Where do you want to start?
It seems like, well, these days there's really an endless number of topics where we could dip our toe in the water. I'll leave that up to you. Whatever you want to talk about, fire away.
So we only have about 15 minutes. I would like to ask your take on the Republican National Convention. How did it go? Any big surprises that you saw coming out of it?
No big surprises. Pretty well, in the times of the coronavirus, right? There's not a whole lot of things that are the same, right? I mean, the obviously the biggest difference was for both conventions, really the move away from the big arena filled with thousands and thousands of people who greet the speakers, and that I think. In some ways may have detracted a little bit from the conventions, but at the same time, it'll be interesting to see in 4 years if the parties take anything from 2020 and apply it in 2024. They might find that they liked some of the fact that they could really control much more tightly the speakers, the timing of it, et cetera. Of course, with the final night of the Republican convention, President Trump did move closer to the traditional method of delivering an acceptance speech with all of those folks on the south lawn of the White House. But again, no big surprises except for the shifts that we have to see during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the race looks like it's maybe tightening a little bit coming out of the conventions, but no huge bump for either candidate.
Yeah, I will say I've enjoyed the storytelling that has come out of both of the conventions, them getting with real people telling real stories. I think that's been a plus that may continue. What was your take on the president using the White House as a backdrop?
I think that it's maybe a little surprising. However, again, it's an instance where both parties, I think, would have liked to have been in those respective cities that had been planning for this for these events for years, really. But it's not like we haven't seen presidents campaign from the White House. Maybe not with an acceptance speech like that, but presidents use the White House all the time. Whenever they're running for re-election, they are at the White House in their official capacities, and sometimes they get asked campaign questions from the press, and I think that it may have been a little more than we're used to, but for me, not a big deal.
One surprise that came from the convention for me, David Dulio, professor of political science at Oakland University, was that there wasn't any update to the party's platform that was announced at the convention. That's very unconventional for what we see during these conventions every 4 years. Any rationale that you believe was behind that decision, or why they decided not to announce any changes at the convention?
Well, I think in both instances, Democratic convention and Republican convention, there's a big difference between what happens during the daytime at these conventions and what happens when the public tunes in prime time for the speeches. And certainly during the Democratic convention, the policy issues that were discussed frankly tended to be a little bit more extreme than what the party wanted to show on TV in prime time. And so I don't think that there's a huge surprise in either party trying to say, well, we developed our platform, but we're not really going to talk about it.
And just to clarify, legally, individuals can only vote once. What do you think the president was trying to do when he was suggesting people should vote twice?
Frankly, I think he was trying to troll us. I think he was trying to troll the media. And look at the reaction that he got, right? I mean, he got a bunch of people, including a bunch of Democrats, to come out and say, yes, it is illegal to vote twice. You cannot vote via absentee and try to go to your polling place, which is kind of what he's been, the point that he's been trying to make for months, right? Is he's been warning us about this, warning us that, that people are going to try to do this. And of course, right, in a totally Trump manner, comes out and says pretty much the opposite, as you say, encouraging people to, or seemingly encouraging people to vote twice. But he got the reaction from Democrats that he wanted.
So I do wonder, we forget he is a business person, first and foremost, and he was also a reality star and the creator of reality television. You know, to some regard, he was very successful in that platform. So I look at some of the moves that he makes and his use of Twitter, and is he extremely intelligent and there's a plan behind what he's doing, or is he just doing it on the whim? I don't know which one to believe.
Well, and neither do I, right? I mean, I think that's it's we have the same reaction to this, a lot of this stuff, I think, Jackie, and it could be either one, and maybe he's in the White House, just laughing up a storm whenever some of the unconventional moves that he makes turn out to benefit him. I mean, maybe he's crazy like a fox.
I do think, I'm like, he has to have a plan. There has to be a plan behind this. And I will say, his attack on media with fake news, I think has actually been very effective and successful in helping him manage his message to his followers and in securing in his message. Do you agree?
100%. But let's be careful, right? The advent of Donald Trump's candidacy and then administration is not the start of Republican distrust of the media. It goes back decades, and back to certainly the early 90s and Speaker Newt Gingrich in the House of Representatives. But before that, George H.W. Bush, Ronald Reagan, even, where Republicans, for as I said, decades, have felt like they don't get a fair shake with the press. And Trump has taken it to another level. And I think you're exactly right that his base loves it when he attacks the press. It energizes his base. It helps them coalesce even more than they already are. So it's a strategy that works for him, no doubt.
Yeah. Do you think he would get away with being able to do that had we not had social media and other platforms for his followers to actually utilize and connect with one another? This was the good old days where you had the 3 TV stations and just your local daily paper, I don't think it would work so well for him.
I think you're right. The internet and social media platforms in particular make it much easier to communicate directly with your base, with your constituents, with your followers, and it's a way to move to go over the heads of the press, right? To have no filter, right? Where back in the old days, in the days of print or radio or as you mentioned the 3 networks, a candidate's or a president's statements would be filtered through reporters and editors. Now they can go right to the people.
So, with Trump and his message and how he is reaching the public and the people, how does that impact our local elections?
Well, to some extent, you see those practices sort of trickling down. And I think that whether it's how candidates interact with their potential voters online, through basic websites, through advertisements, through social media engagements. You see some of that filtering down. I also think too, we see just driving around our local area, sometimes you'll see, for instance, a candidate for a more local office explicitly call out and say, I'm not just a Republican, I'm a Trump Republican. And so I think that it does have an effect.
As a student studying political science, I know that you guys are just jumping into the new semester there at Oakland University. Do you think this is going to excite students? And it brings, because it is a crazy time in politics. Although politics have always been crazy, I think we're just paying more attention to it now because it seems so divisive. As a student going into political science, do you think it's going to attract more students or turn students away from the arena of political science?
That's really interesting. I think you could make a case for it either way, but the numbers that we're seeing in our department are that it is drawing more students. And I'll give you just two comparison data points. You know, the number of students in our classes this fall semester are up. The number of new majors that we have in political science at Oakland University are up. So I think that people are not only interested, but they have a draw to study it and learn more about it.
We have just a few minutes left here with you. And before we go, I know we've talked about this before, but the Civic Engagement project over there at Oakland University, I think is such an important asset to our community for people to understand what you guys are doing over there. Can you go ahead and just briefly update us on the program and also some of your upcoming events and how people can sign up if they want to?
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. We're going to, you know, as I've talked to you all before, one of the things that we want to do at the center is have Oakland University become known as a convener of conversations around issues of public importance. And with COVID-19, we can't very well convene, right? We can't get together physically, but we can virtually. So all of our stuff will be virtual in the fall semester. And I'll talk about two or three things that are going on. One is our office hours series, where we're going to highlight faculty from across the campus, really, about issues related to civics and current events, et cetera. The first one we had on Wednesday of this week, the day before classes started. We featured three faculty from our Department of Sociology, Anthropology, Social Work, and Criminal Justice. And they talked about how protests can turn into social change. Of course, in the wake of the George Floyd killing and the protests that we've seen across the country in recent weeks and months. And we had 75 folks turn out for pretty much a call like this, where they listened to our expert faculty, asked them questions. So we try to make it as interactive as possible, as much as we can with the platforms that we're forced to use right now. We're going to do 3 more of those in the rest of the fall semester, 1 more in September, 1 in October, 1 in November, all focused on Campaign 2020. One of them will be focused on the economy with a couple of economists from our School of Business Administration. One in October will be an election preview with me and a couple other political scientists, and then we'll do a wrap-up, a campaign debrief, if you will, 1 week after the election. We're also going to do something with the Civility Project that's started by Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson. Nolan Finley, of course, from the Detroit News, and Stephen Henderson from WDET Public Radio in Detroit, where the Civility Project is really all about their relationship as two folks who disagree strongly politically, but they maintain a wonderful friendship. And I've been part of other editions of the program they're going to put on for us in October 6th. And they talk about how their relationship is better because they disagree. politically, but they disagree in the quote unquote right way, and they do it respectfully, right? So they're really one of the great things about it is that they model the behavior that I would like to see, and I think we all would like to see more of our friends and neighbors use as they talk about politics.
We could all use some of that right now. About 20 seconds left. One last question. John James, Gary Peters. That is heating up. We are seeing a ton of commercials. Who wins?
Oh, gosh, way too early to tell. 2 months in politics is like 2 lifetimes.
There you go. David Dulio with us on the Oakland County Megacast, professor of political science and director of the Center for Civic Engagement. Head over to Oakland University's website. Learn more about the Center for Civic Engagement. Great things that they are doing over there to bring all of us together and educate us here in Oakland County. I'm Ronnie Dahl alongside Tyler Keith. This has been the Oakland County Megacast. For Larry, Jake, and all of us here, we want to say thank you and holiday weekend.